Welcome, everybody, to a special edition of UFO Man Live. My name is Tim, or UFO Man, and to my side is my friend and my co-host, Tommy Highway. Tommy?
Folks, Tommy Highway here. Thrilled to be here with you tonight, folks. We have something very special because we're going to have a very special opportunity this evening. The actual broadcast will be a pre-recorded video that basically Kerry Cassidy interviewed UFO Man and myself. So while we're actually playing that pre-recorded video, we are going to join all of you in the chat. So this is something that we don't often have a very good opportunity to do because we're doing the show and it's very difficult to chat at least as much as we'd like to and connect with as many of you folks as possible while we're on the show. This time, we're actually going to have the opportunity to be able to interact more. If you have any questions at all, just let us know what they are. We're happy to answer anything at the best of our ability. Tim?
Yep, that's how it's going to go. Here we go.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kerry Cassidy from Project Camelot. And very happy to be here today. Sorry for the hoarse voice. So it's been a very, very busy morning. And I just wrote this huge article, and that kind of took a lot of my attention in the early morning, and that came out of nowhere. I didn't know that was going to happen. So here we are with Tim Dust and Tommy Highway. And Tim, you call yourself UFO Man, or is that what you call your channel?
Both.
Okay. All right. So we've had you guys on before, and so we're going to continue down the same road, and just I think you're going to be sharing whatever you've been coming across lately, and it's just going to be a sort of a roundtable conversation. So why don't you briefly introduce yourself, and then we'll go over to Tommy to do the same, and then we'll kind of launch into whatever.
Okay, hello, everyone. My name is Tim Dust, or UFO Man online. I operate a YouTube channel of the same name, and I'm on Facebook and Twitter as well. I've been researching UFOs since I was very young and have had several close-up sightings and maybe even a couple abduction events. I'm a U.S. Army veteran, and I am currently devoting my life to finding the truth about alien life and UFOs.
Okay, very good. Tommy?
Folks, my name is Tommy Highway, and I'm a former government employee. I'm a network engineer and an author. I grew up in the very close proximity to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Dayton, Ohio. And of course, growing up there, you just hear all the rumors about the Roswell crash, pieces being actually sent there, the bodies being kept there, things of that nature. I mean, even teachers in school would talk about this. But in the very early 90s, I had an experience while I was out by myself driving my car that opened my eyes to the fact that not only are we not alone in the universe, but frankly, the government has obviously been covering this information up for decades. So as a government employee, I felt that I had to keep my story, both my encounters very close to the vest for fear of ridicule, or let's just say if you talk about UFOs and you work for the government, it's not exactly a promotional moment, okay? So I kept my stories to myself until I finally decided to make some real money and get into the private sector. And once I did that, I wrote a book called Strange Tales from the Highway, which depicts my experiences in many different things, but specifically the UFO experiences that I had. So basically, Tim and I hooked up many years ago. I became the co-host of our live show that we have every Saturday night at 9 p.m. Eastern time. And we've been investigating the phenomenon together ever since.
All right, very good. So you've been doing a show on your own, and how long has your show been going on?
I'd say our show has been going on for what, Tommy, maybe 3-4 years now?
At least 3 years.
Okay, and what do you talk about on your show? I mean, is it obviously UFO sightings? Do people call in? Do you have guests? How does that work?
Tommy?
Well, we actually talk about a variety of different subjects, but they're all tied into the UFO experience in one way or another. We do a lot of interviews. We have a lot of fantastic guests. Kerry, you've been one of our favorite guests, of course, in the past. And so we basically try to provide a show where we're talking about the subject. We're talking about it in a very credible way. And we're staying out of the tabloid waters, if you will. We deal in facts. We deal in what we can actually prove, or what we have a pretty good theory on, things of that nature. We have a very robust chat room, a lot of great people there. They really have a good time. And yeah, we just really enjoy doing the show. And we're out to get to the bottom of this. I mean, that's the bottom line.
Right. And we don't only talk about UFOs. We sometimes delve into the cryptid area, and we also look into the paranormal, and very rarely the paranormal, but we do look into that. And we've done shows on remote viewing and consciousness, raising consciousness, and we've also done shows on things like alien abduction and aliens here on Earth. So we try to cover as many subjects as possible.
Correct. Tim and I are going to go ahead and pen a book together. But Tim actually left out, Kerry, the most obvious reason that we wanted to come back on. We missed you.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Okay, well, thank you. That's lovely. Now, it's great to talk to you guys. And what I'd like to do is really talk about some of the cases that you guys are looking into. And I got a treat for you, by the way. I think you'll both be very interested. So I did my yearly conference in the summer in the UK after much duress, and it went off very lovely. So we had 5 speakers a day, I think it was 4 or 5, and on Saturday, it's 2 nights actually. And so we had to do it on the weeknights. Usually we do it on the weekends, but this time it was on the weeknights. Anyway, we had some fabulous guests, and they're talking a lot about their sort of UFO and ET encounters and such. So you're going to have some new information to bring to the fore, assuming you can, and I can give you free access to those videos.
Thank you.
They're
Okay.
going to be free for subscribers to my channel, but you guys being my guests are kind of like, first in line. And then we're also going to make them available to the public. It'll be, through a paywall type thing where it's maybe $3 a video or less. The reason we charge for the show, for the conference, is 1, to keep us afloat financially, but 2, because it costs a fair amount to put on the conference, and we do pay our speakers. In this case, you and I, all 3 of us, were, usually when you do online shows, you don't have to pay your speakers. Everyone
Right.
does that voluntarily. But when it's in the real world, people have to drive their cars, they have to travel, they have to spend money sometimes to stay overnight, and all of that. So there's an expense quotient involved. But at any rate, we're almost done. It's all edited, ready to go. We're just going to put it up soon. And so I just want to give everyone's a heads up on that. And you guys in particular, because I know you're sort of collecting stories. And so again, to get back to my question, I want to know what is capturing your attention right now? What particular cases are you focusing on? Well, let's start with Tim and then go to Tommy.
Oh, right now I'm focusing on Kelvin Parker because we're going to be interviewing him on Friday the 20th. And although we've done a story on him before, we've never ever actually heard it from him. So we want to hear the story from the person that actually experienced it. And I'm very interested in what he knows. I want to pick his brain. I want to find out what he actually went through, because I think when you hear it from the real person, you get a real feel for what the event was like. When you hear it from someone else or in a video, you really don't. And so we're bringing him forward on the channel on Friday. And
Okay, now that's a live, is that a live show or is that a?
yeah, that's a live.
Okay. So tell me, what is the crux of the case? Just the sort of simple explanation of what it's all about.
Oh, it's an alien abduction event. alien encounter, actually, where they saw some aliens come out of a ship that landed, I guess, behind them on the Pascagoula River. They weren't on the river, they were standing on the banks of the river fishing, and a light came over them, and it eventually came down and it landed, and some beings came out, and they looked really weird. They looked like they had the skin of an elephant and had three like prongs coming out of their head, one in front and two on the sides. No eyes, no mouth, nothing. They had legs, they had arms that had pincers, and they floated toward them. And according to what I understand, Calvin and his buddy lost track of where they were all of a sudden, and that they were on board this vehicle, and they were on tables, and things happened to them, and that's what we're going to get into.
All right. All right. So, Tommy, any particular case that's catching your attention at the moment?
Well, to be honest, there are just so many out there, and I've noticed that. Well, we've noticed that there's an uptick in sightings and things of that nature. I think especially after the UFO report, and even the time leading up to the UFO report release, people are looking up more. People realize that they have whatever cell phone they have is probably a pretty decent camera in its own right in their pocket, and people are starting to film and take photos and things of that nature. One of the things that I also wanted to mention was we also have Whitley Strieber coming on in a few weeks. He's the author of Communion, and we already interviewed him at Contact in the Desert, and he was just so fantastic. We are so excited to interview him again. But I guess what my focus at this point is sort of tunnel vision, if you will. I'm very disappointed in what was released to us in the UFO report from the government. I felt that it was a fifth grade book report, B+ work at best. And we know from our sources, and we do have a lot of sources, get a lot of not late night phone calls, emails, things of that nature. We know from very, very credible sources that the classified version of the report does in fact contain 4K video shot by pilots and photos shot by pilots from the cockpit with their own cell phones of these spacecraft literally flying in formation with them, like sitting right off of their wing. Now, we know from our sources that this information exists. And my focus at this point is to get some of that released, because obviously it's there. There's obviously more to the story, and it's not good enough just to come out and say, yes, these things are real. We want more info than that, because we know it exists, and we believe as American people that we deserve that.
Right, and because of that, we started a petition on our website called UFOmannetwork.com, and we're asking people just to sign up with their email and their name so that we can send it to the Department of Defense and the Office of Naval Intelligence to try to request the information that was not relinquished. I mean, we demand the people demand some of that information. I mean, I think that a lot of us are capable of handling the truth of what's out there. All right, we know UFOs are real. We know there's craft flying around. We also know that the government will not confirm beyond a shadow of a doubt that they're extraterrestrial. I mean, we don't know what they are. I personally believe they do know what they are, and they're not saying. So
Absolutely.
So we have that petition. So if anybody in the chat room or on the panel want to come out and sign our petition, feel free. When we reach 1,000, then we're gonna submit it.
Okay. That's great. Well, it's funny, but I guess I don't think I've looked at the report, so I don't really know what's in there. I just became disenchanted, I guess you might say, before it even came out, simply because not only there was, in the news, they were sort of trying to say what was going to be in it and so on and so forth. And that sounded extremely disappointing. And then, apparently is the murder of Mark McCandlish, UFO researcher, and actually, I guess, trying to reverse engineer the UAP, what is called the Alien Reproduction Vehicle. So he spent his life doing that and was very dedicated. He also, before he died, the story goes that he did offer to do a testimony to the sort of the panel or whoever it is that might be the Senate Intelligence Committee or whatever, to that, also to the group that released the latest report, and then strangely, as I say, was murdered in a very, shotgun to the head, which is a very Illuminati style of suiciding somebody. So this is, I did a fair amount of research. I interviewed a number of people about, people that were close to him, et cetera. So that's all on my website for people that are interested, by the way. And I did interviews also with people, not only behind, off the record, but also on the record. So you can see, I did a tribute show in which I interviewed Robert Morningstar and Paul Price. Paul, actually, I think Price is his last name. So I think he goes by Rick Price now. But at any rate, so that's why I never followed through with, aside from the fact that there's so much going on the ground here on the planet that we have to be concerned about as well. So my attention has kind of been away from this sector a bit. Now, so it's great to hear you guys kind of give some feedback. Was there anything that really came to mind that sort of stuck out? Any, I don't know, testimony or focus in the report that kind of was like a red flag to you? Anything particular? We can go one at a time, whichever.
Go ahead, Tommy. I know what you're going to say.
To me, I mean, the red flag of the report is the report itself. I mean, the fact that we got next to nothing out of that. I mean, almost nothing. The only thing that we received is that the government recognizes that these things are real, and that's the end of it. That's all we got. And we know, again, that there's footage, all kinds of testimony out there and things like that we're not privy to because it's been classified. Now, the biggest question I have is that we all, again, I mentioned before, we all have a cell phone. We all know how to use the camera on the cell phone, or most of us. And when a pilot is in a cockpit of a plane and he pulls up his cell phone and starts recording something, I need someone to explain to me how that's classified, how that cell phone video is classified technology that may hinder or project how we do things, our ways and means, to our adversaries. Because our adversaries, they have cell phones too. They know how to use them too. So that whole excuse does not hold water with me. The fact of the matter is, they're still withholding the same information that they've been withholding for decades, and they're doing it for nefarious reasons. They're not doing it for reasons that they're worried about the public health and safety and all that. If the government were truly worried about the public health and safety, then there's a lot of things it'd be doing right now to fix some problems that we have. It's not about that. It's not about the children. It's not about orphans. It's not about that. It's about withholding this information for nefarious reasons. Tim?
Yeah, it's all about control and power. The thing about it is, in the report, they said they had 144 cases. And out of 144 cases, only one they could explain, they claimed. And that was supposedly a deflating balloon at 36,000 feet, a Mylar children's balloon. Now, that kind of leaves Tommy and I guessing, because number one, the picture showed by the jet pilot that took the photo of the object, claimed that this object was keeping pace with his jet. So however fast that jet was going, that balloon was moving. So if it was a Mylar balloon, that was impossible.
We can also get a fairly good idea of the size of the object based on the cockpit and everything that was shot through the cockpit. And that's number one, that's a really big child's balloon. And secondly, I mean, there's just no way that a Mylar balloon is going to reach 30,000 feet. That's just not possible. I think it's one of those that they had to come out and say, okay, well, we have to be able to prove one. Let's go ahead and throw this one out there because it's the easiest one that we can come up with an excuse for. So in other words, what we're saying here is the one sighting that they try to authenticate, Tim and I don't agree with them on.
Right.
I totally get you there. Well, that sounds ludicrous, actually, kind of like a joke.
Right.
because the whole Roswell, they tried to trot out these Mylar balloons at that point. So that's always been the way to, it's like we call this swamp gas argument, and I have interviewed people that actually, one in particular who talks about being hired by the government to be a disinfo agent. And even Alan Hynek that was part of his role, by the way, until he changed his mind and decided that he actually believed in the reality of being visited from other planets, and went on to sort of write a book or two, and also working with God, what's his name, Jacques Vallée.
Jacques
So
Vallée, yeah.
they worked together trying to out the secrecy from Project Blue Book and all of that. They weren't successful. And there's a television series called Project Blue Book that addresses it's not exactly accurate to life, but it's very close. And I actually met one of the key, I think the producers at one of the conferences I was speaking at a couple of years ago. So, that's fascinating, because you see that they're all about secrecy. And apparently, from what you're telling me, they're continuing along that same exact road. They obviously have no respect for humans in general, but certainly UFO researchers and people like us that have been following the sector for, in my case, over 17 years, in your cases, whatever it is. You know what I'm saying? And everyone else out there, as well as the many, many whistleblowers and contactees, and experiencers, whatever you want to say. And then if you look at Rich Dolan's, UFOs in the national security state, you see volumes, like this thick, 3, packed with authorities of all kinds, group sightings, so we're talking police, military sightings. In other words, these people that are extremely educated and are not going to mistake a balloon for a craft.
Right, exactly. And that's the thing about our feelings about that jet pilot. I mean, they're trained in the United States Air Force to identify craft up to 25 miles away, just at the drop of a hat. I mean, they can say what that is. That's an F-22, so a few feet away out on the wingtip shouldn't be a problem.
Sure. You see, you have to understand that the government for decades has gone out of its way to, at the very least, discredit people that have actually come up with sightings, things of that nature. They've discredited people. They've destroyed people's lives. They've destroyed people's reputations. They've intimidated people. And here's the thing about that. If this is just some crackpot out there running their mouth about, crazy things, why would the government bother to discredit that person? Why even mess with them in any way? Why interact with their life? Let them go out there and spew a bunch of false information. That's probably a good thing for the government. But instead of doing that, we've seen people discredited again. We've seen people's lives destroyed. We've seen people murdered. We've seen mysterious deaths, people jumping off of buildings, that were not suicidal before. And again, if there's nothing to it, why fear these people? Why fear them enough to discredit them? Because that's exactly what it is. You don't discredit someone unless you're afraid of something they can do to you or information that they have. And that's what our government has done to its own people.
Why make something national security and so that you can't see it? Why have all these redacted documents when you do the Freedom of Information Act? But the UFO secrecy, I mean, the very fact that they say a lot of what they said, even in their report, was classified. Like, we've got it, but we're not telling you. Well, the reason they're not telling you is because it's real. In other words, why would you classify a lot? You have to kind of look at the reverse of everything they're doing. So that's what we've got. And there's just so much. I mean, I've spent, as I say, really going on 17 years at this point, investigating this subject. Over 900 interviews, most of which are regarding the UFO subject. I only recently got knocked off YouTube because I interviewed doctors about COVID. and they didn't like that. But they considered that anything to do with UFOs and that whole national security state to be a laughing matter. That's how they were hoping it would stay. Now, of course, even had I remained on YouTube and never touched the COVID story, they would still, they even, like if I did interviews on people like the Kennedy assassination, they would take, they took those down. So there's other areas where they didn't want you to go. But the bottom line is that right now, with the secrecy being, the doors being blown open in a certain sense, regardless of the fact that they haven't shown you anything real other than, this Tic Tac, which is a highly cleansed video, and the one other, I guess it's a Nimitz related sighting. So, this is nonsense by our standards. And of course, UFOs are everywhere. They're prolific, videos all over the place. You can you spend a lifetime looking at UFO videos if you spent your time on YouTube, because it's so chock full of them.
Sure.
So what, 144 cases out of millions, zillions worldwide? I mean, it's laughable.
Well,
and then you're telling me there's only one that they could even break apart and
you have to
explain?
You have to look at the scope of what they were investigating here. They were only investigating a few years worth of sightings. Okay, like a few decades. They weren't going worldwide, and this was strictly military sightings. They weren't really going into the civilian part of this and all of that, the civilian sightings and whatnot. So. And it's like Tim and I always say, you don't classify BS. You don't classify BS. You just don't. Why would you do that? And that's exactly what they're doing. So.
Yeah, and
we're in agreement on that.
I also hear that not every president is thoroughly briefed on the subject either.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, and then, this is just talking about the craft, of course. What about the occupants? So this is a major issue always. And of course, the many abduction stories that are out there and contact stories, and it just goes on. And I'm still doing interviews with people on that basis as well. And, not so much on sightings alone, because sightings are pretty, there is a limit to what goes on, unless they actually go, as you said, like in your case that you were talking about, they go into the craft, or there's some extenuating circumstances around the situation. Yeah, that's very interesting. There's actually, there's a case in England that I've reported on that there's new information about that I'm hoping that we're going to be able to bring forward in the near future. What has happened with all of this, though, is, I don't know if you're finding this, but I was beginning to find a lot of it, is that a lot of the witnesses are really reluctant to come forward nowadays.
Yes.
There was a time when they were more open to coming forward, and then there was sort of a clamp down, and these people got harassed by the government, and various things happened. So that's been a problem. I don't know if you know Miles Johnston, but he's been having constant harassment. And he's somebody who really specializes on interviewing abductees and contactees. So, this is the kind of thing where one would think there's actually an opening up, right? Because they wanted to bring the reports forward, and yet they did nothing. So it's like 2 steps forward, 2 steps back kind of thing, where you actually go nowhere, you stay in one place. So this is what I observe. What about controversial cases, and maybe even your favorite cases? Are there any cases in history that have always kept your attention that you go back to over and over again? And let's start with Tim on that.
I would say the communion case, the one in upstate New York, with Whitley Strieber, his wife, his friends, and his son.
Okay, so
that one was one of the first books I read when I was younger, and has always made me think about the world paradigm. I mean, that's what introduced me to alien abduction and aliens here on Earth. I never realized that till I read that book. I mean, I had seen craft when I was very young, but I'm saying I never saw the occupants. And to this day, I still don't remember if I've seen any occupants. I'm not real sure. I've seen some odd things, but I'm not sure if they were occupants or not, or just screen memories. But in regards to the communion book, yeah, Whitley Strieber's book made a really big impact on me. The story about what happened in upstate New York. And not only that, there's two others I have to mention. It would be Bud Hopkins' book, the one about the Brooklyn Bridge abductions.
Okay.
That one with Linda Napolitano. And also The Day After Roswell by Corso. So those three made a huge impact on me. So I go back to those quite a bit. In regards to books, there's a book by Michael Hessman. He wrote, it's called The Secret History of UFOs. And it is chock full of so much information. I mean, information that you don't hear on YouTube, that you don't see on Google. You really have to have the contacts to know it. And that's another thing I go back to. So
excellent.
I would say that.
Yeah. Okay. So what about you, Tommy?
Well, to be honest, there are so many great stories. We've interviewed so many awesome people with their stories, people that have written books about their experiences and things like that. So it's really difficult to nail down just one, but I would have to say probably the Roswell crash. The reason I say that is because the house I grew up in, again, it was real close to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, pretty much in the neighborhood. My family were very interested in the subject of UFOs growing up. Travis Walton, that experience, that was a real big deal in my house. But I think the Roswell crash, because here's the thing, I was recently very privileged to be able to spend some time in Roswell. And I'm told that I was the unofficial mayor of the city for a week. So I got along with everybody very, very well. And everyone that I interviewed and spoke with, they all said the same thing. Number one, they're absolutely convinced beyond any shadow of a doubt that this happened. Roswell is not that big of a town. It's really not. A lot of people that I interviewed have family members that were involved in the crash in some phase of the crash in some way. But that being said, I would think Roswell because I am convinced that it happened. I'm convinced that we did retrieve bodies. I'm also convinced that they were sent to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. And to be honest, I believe they're probably still there, as well as the crash debris. There are just too many people saw what happened there. It had some part in the crash itself, be it the morticians, be it the people that were collecting debris. And a lot of people talked, and usually on their deathbed pretty much, but a lot of people talked. So This is real. This has happened. And the government has done its absolute best for whatever its reasons are to cover all this up.
Yeah, Tommy was boots on the ground for UFO Man channel when he went down to Roswell. So that was really cool.
Wonderful experience.
Yes.
Great. Well, I appreciate that. I was just actually, while you're talking, I was looking to see if I could find, there's a very interesting book that I stumbled on, and I think it was written by, as I recall, I don't know why I think the guy was Canadian, or maybe he just spent some time looking at the Canadian cases. But anyway, and I can't find it. But at the moment, I do write about it. Actually, I read about it in my book, Rebel Gene, in case you haven't read my book. And in that story, in his kind of UFO investigations, he came across the very important role that linear accelerators, including CERN, play in creating portals to go interdimensional. And I think this is a underplayed, misunderstood, secretive, really, part of the whole UFO story that people, never paid much attention to it. This whole thing of what we call portal technology, which is also what To the Stars Academy, you know, those guys, I call them the usual
Yep.
suspects, they're all very interested in. They're very interested in the commercial aspect of portal tech, but portal tech is very real, and you could liken it to time travel, which would be the more popular term, I guess, in a certain sense. But the reality is that being able to go interdimensional is absolutely key to the whole UFO story. And I think that this is, as I say, under publicized, under, you know, investigated. And there's one particular book that I really I stumbled on, and I was so happy that I did. And I did involve it slightly in my book. As I say, Rebel Gene, I quoted from it and so on. So if you want to pick up my book, it's in there. I don't have it right in front of me, and it's been a while since I've looked at all this material, but I can say that portal technology is key. And this is also what the secret government is very interested in and pursuing, and what, you know, To the Stars Academy, and it is like a bridge operation to go from them to the people. So those players, Hal Puthoff, you know, the various ones, they're all, in essence, supposed to kind of be almost ambassadors from the secret space program, if you will. And they work to translate, to give people sort of a small window in to what really is going on. And so I wouldn't discount those individuals, because they are really serious about what they're involved in. And they do release information that's useful if you follow it, if you follow the clues closely. You can get a lot more information than if you just sort of read it superficially and then you just move on. So for people that are interested in pursuing this subject and investigating, don't ignore portal technology and the very important role that time travel, Tesla tech, for example, all of these things have to do with this subject. And you know, flying interdimensional is part of that, etc. Any thoughts on
Teleportation.
what I've just said? Have you guys looked into that on your own?
I've looked into teleportation uh, technology,
Right.
and the ability to actually step into, like, between two beams into a field of energy and actually disappear and come out in some other state instantaneously. I mean, they actually have this technology in the almost operational stage. I heard they may actually have it in the operational stage in several countries, but I'm not certain of that. I haven't really proven that yet. But I do know that they have it on the engineering table, so to speak, in regards
Sure.
to creating it. So it is a big thing, teleportation, because if we have teleporters in our house, we don't need cars, right? And if we
Yes.
don't need cars, then we don't have to rely on petroleum to power our vehicles, and then our environment will heal itself. So that might be a big thing.
They've already actually successfully teleported a few molecules from one place to another. That has been done. We're probably years away from the technology to be able to teleport us, but that's in the future. I definitely see that in the future. But let's go back to, if you don't mind, to CERN again. I have a concern about CERN. I think that we're meddling with technology that we don't know enough about yet to meddle with it. And I think that that's what CERN is doing. And I think that CERN is essentially playing with fire, because it's like any theological professor will tell you, if you create even a micro black hole on this planet, even for a fraction of a second, we have a serious problem on our hands. Okay, a very serious problem.
Right.
So I don't know. To me, I think that we're getting ahead of ourselves technologically when we're playing with things like CERN. I get the science behind it. At least I get what they're proposing the science behind it to be, let's say. But again, I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I don't want to come off like that, but I've just got some real concerns about the research that they're actually doing there.
Well, it's not only that, they're building a new CERN, a bigger one, right next to it.
Mm-hmm. China's building one. Why are they building
Well,
one?
Japan is also building a CERN, and China, one would assume. Actually, now I just came across this information. So let me see if I have it here. So so the book I was referring to is called UFO Encounters, Brookhaven and Carp Incidents, and it's by a researcher called J.B. Michaels. And that is again containing a lot of good information about the linear accelerators, their role that people aren't aware of, and in UFO and teleportation and what we call portal tech, and the kinds also with regard to CERN. Now, I have whistleblower testimony with regard to CERN, so your concerns are valid in the sense that one of the things CERN is said to be involved in, which is not searching for the so-called God particle, actually contrary to what they put out there,
Right.
but it's opening portals, wormholes in essence, to the Draco galaxy, so that the Dracos, reptilians, and Greys can come and go, and they do, and keeping it open, so keeping the wormhole open, so that the craft can come and go at will. And basically, what you're getting is these scout ships of the reptilians that go into places like Syria and wherever the war happens to be, and take human slaves, and then take them through CERN out off the planet. So this is coming from actually more than one whistleblower to me, and I can say that I've had it validated in several ways. So that's CERN, and there's more going on there to do with that kind of tech. In other words, opening wormholes and going interdimensional again. So whereas the public tends to concentrate on what we call hardware, or at least
Right.
that seems to be the case, or it certainly was for years. A lot of people are so skeptical of abductions and contact cases, partly because it relies upon an individual human who rarely has witnesses, whereas the craft are seen with multiple witnesses, so there's some feeling of more confidence, less chance of being discredited. But nonetheless, the testimonies, of course, are fascinating and very, very important to do with people that have been in contact and abductions, and really getting to know the various races out there. And their method is, and was established a long time ago actually, to individually contact humans, as opposed to go through their governments, knowing that their government would lie and deceive and so on and so forth. So that was a decision that aliens made, basically coming here to Earth. And so that is what they actually have continued to do, which leaves us in a very interesting position, because I know you were talking about, you interviewed Terry Lovelace, and so have I several times. And when you really get into his story, you begin to see that there could be a very, let's say, negative intent on the part of the beings that did take him and his fellow Air Force officer. I'm not sure what their actual rank was back then, but at any rate, they were both in the Air Force. And
Right.
so, and it had a lasting effect on him. The reason he's such an excellent witness is because, again, he's a lawyer, and he had a very sort of steady life after that, in which he kept secret for 40 years, and then wrote his book and came forward and so on. So now he's been on the circuit now for a few years, I think maybe 4 or 5, I don't know. But this is the kind of thing where you need a witness who is has a lot of standing in the community, right? Before people will start to really take him seriously, at least people in the mainstream and so on and so forth with that. So that's an interesting conundrum that we're always dealing with. There's also, I am interested, in my view, Contact in the Desert, like a lot of these conferences, is also managed. It's managed by CIA, and it's managed by, what you call the deep state. so that they only let certain people in there and others are not allowed, such as myself. So, and a lot of people have requested that I speak there, so and so. I've tried to get in there, but they don't allow me because they don't want my stuff, my approach, which is to really have high level whistleblowers involved in that conference, you know. So it's interesting to also look at conferences and how they sort of steer them. And I've seen very obvious things like the UFO Congress that went on for years and how that was managed, how they actually, I think it was Tim Cooper, who is, if I have his name right, interrupted on stage when he was talking. He's like a very famous, you know, writer and investigator, and basically turned off his mic because they didn't like what he was saying. So,
Wow.
you know, and everything went down. Nothing would work, but every other speaker was just fine. So this kind of stuff does go on. I don't know if you experienced anything at the Contact in the Desert where you were, and you don't have to talk about it if you don't want to. Maybe that's, you know, personal. I don't know. You know, I don't want you to get blackballed or anything like that. But you know, it's very important to know that not only is there secrecy in the deep state and the government and the way they handle the UFO subject, but actually there is a method to kind of clamp down on. I mean, Mark McCandlish is a perfect example, but in the sector, in the public sector, to make sure that a lot of this information doesn't get out there.
You
And
know,
that's going to matter more and more as we move into the future.
I remember as a child, and I'm talking about this is the 70s. I'm probably not even 10 years old yet. And I distinctly remember there was a case in Dayton, Ohio, near where I'm from. There was a UFO sighting, and Channel 7 News, I could be mistaken about that, but I believe it was Channel 7 News. They go to interview this person that actually had the experience. Well, it turns out that this man is mentally ill, homeless person. He's got gold paint around his mouth where he's been huffing paint, and he's just flailing his arms and all that. And the news reporter was snickering. The anchor was snickering. They specifically interviewed this guy just to make light of the UFO phenomena. And I remember as a little kid being ticked off about that.
Making us all look like idiots. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, there's a lot of that going around. So, and, you know, I guess you've heard that one of the main reasons, not the only reason, that Kennedy was assassinated was to do with the UFO story.
Yeah.
Right.
According to my very top witness, Captain Mark Richards, who I've interviewed 12 times in prison, he was actually, he knew Kennedy, and so did his father. They worked for him basically as well. So they knew that what Kennedy was planning to announce in Dallas that day before he was killed had to do with the UFO story, among other things. So yeah, there's a huge cover up. The cover up continues. It blows my mind. Right now we're dealing with another cover up, Rich, which is to do with the whole vax situation and so-called COVID. So that too is a cover up. And I recently said to a friend that, look at the UFO secrecy. How have they maintained that? After say 60 to 80 years, right, out in public, to where most of the public still has considers it to be, they're skeptical, they don't want to go there, et cetera, et cetera. When, so society is as divided on that story as it is on this new story. And yet the secrecy is the same mechanism. It's the same people orchestrating the secrecy. And the way they orchestrate it, there you can see parallels if you actually take the time to look at it. And I think that's quite illuminating, if you will, that they are rolling out now a secrecy that they're trying to push. Like, I don't know, what has it been, a year and a half, almost 2 years now of secrecy surrounding this so-called virus that they never can isolate. You see this is the same thing. So you get the pros and the cons. It's a little more front and center because it's supposed to affect everyone, right? So the UFO thing is more a sideline, but nonetheless, the same mechanisms are in place to discredit, to lie to your face in the mainstream media, etc. So I think this bears looking at, and I don't know if you guys have thought about that at all, or
Yes, we have. In fact, we're looking into the fact that Lou Elizondo, although he claims to be the spokesperson for the UFO community, so to speak, he actually has been confirmed as a federally hired counterintelligence agent. So, and he has been all along. So, how do we know that he isn't spreading disinformation in the form of actual information? So, we're kind of looking into that. Another thing that I wanted to mention in regards to CERN, what is the name of that goddess that's out front? The goddess of destruction, the one
Shiva?
that is, yeah,
Shiva.
yeah, that really doesn't say what they're doing. I know it has something to do with the pagan ritual that surrounded the initiation of CERN.
Well, yeah, but I think it also Shiva. There's also an experiment that they were doing at I guess it was this lab, Livermore Labs. I think it called Shiva Nova. Yeah, so Shiva is sort of a favorite goddess of the secret space program, and May, as I recall, Shiva I think has all those arms.
Right.
And so again, if you think about all those arms and you think of a portal and you think of, it going like into a portal. So
Oh, that
there's
makes sense.
symbolism there that I think they're accessing. And that's maybe part of the reason. There was also a sacrifice that was performed, purposefully. It was a black magic sacrifice of a woman right in front of the gate in the Shiva, in front of Shiva, the statue. Like that was maybe 2 years ago or so.
Wow.
Yeah. So anyway, there's a lot to all of that. There's also, by the way, Project Bluebeam. So we could kind of talk
Right.
about that. That's a whole can of worms itself, which is by some, called a fake alien invasion. Some people
Right.
like me call it a fake real alien invasion, because at the same time that we've got holograms and fake aliens, we have real ones at the same time invading. So it's kind of a never-ending story really with humanity, and that can be proven by reading Ashiana Dean's Voyager books 1 and 2, which are linked on the front page of my Project Camelot website. But and if you want to read the Bible, you can also pick up the indicators there that humans have always been dealing with beings from other planets, and
Right.
certain, what we call the Greek gods. Those are all, in essence, Pleiades and
Aztec
Anas-
sculptures and things like that.
Anunnaki and Iran or Iraq carved into the walls and temples and so on and so forth. So this is what we're dealing with. We are dealing with aliens and their presence here on Earth and their interaction with our people. But to get back to Project Bluebeam and, whatever. So you guys, have you got any thoughts about what the future could hold in this regard? Have you heard the idea that they might want to roll that out as a last card in the whole litany of deep space, secret sort of space information and ways of controlling humanity that would sort of access that information, bring it forward, but in a way that they could control it. And I have the testimony of Randy Kramer, and I've written articles on this and all of that. So there's a lot to that story, a lot of sort of deceptive levels. What are your thoughts? Let's go with Tim first.
Um, uh, I've heard that they've had the ability to almost just push a button and they can initiate a false alien invasion. I mean, actual stagecraft, ARVs that are maybe hidden by Project Bluebeam and made to look bigger. And then they'll come around and use actual particle beam weapons and shoot at the ground. So actually cause destruction and to create the effect of an alien invasion, that they can actually do this. And the reason why behind it that I've read is that if they create an alien invasion, what does it do? It makes the people clamor for government help. It makes them run to the government. Oh, help me, I'm being invaded. And then all of a sudden we're clamoring for military might. So what happens? The money gets funneled into the military industrial complex. It gets more funding and boom, there you are.
Okay. Tommy?
Okay. I personally don't believe that that's a likely scenario. And the reason I don't believe that is because the United States government can't do anything without completely screwing it up. They can't touch anything. Look at what we're going through right now with Afghanistan. So to say that to think that the United States government is competent in the least, I have real doubts about that. So we can't keep a secret. There's all kinds of things that we can't do. And I just don't believe that the United States government, even if they have the ability to stage a false flag alien invasion, that they actually have the talent to pull that off. I don't see that happening. What I do think, though, I do believe that there have been multiple crashes all over the globe. This not just Roswell, but there have been several other crashes. I do believe Bob Lazar when he says that we've got at least 9 craft in a secret base. I believe that. I believe it because I don't think you can make that stuff up, if nothing else. But that being said, the unfortunate truth here is that no matter what happens, if a UFO were to crash on, let's say, downtown Main Street someplace,
Right.
there for all to see, okay, they're still going to cover that up. They're still not
Right.
going to come out and say, oh, well, hey, there's aliens there. They're not going to do that. One of the reasons that I believe that they're keeping this such a secret is because I believe that it would upset the balance of power militarily on the planet. Imagine if we were to come out all of a sudden and say, okay, the rest of the world, we have anti-gravity technology, alien weapons, and things like that are a million years ahead of anything that you have or anyone else has. That's going to cause a military problem on this planet. And even if someone else did it, we would try to come at them militarily so
Right.
that they would do the same thing. I don't know. To me, it just seems like the government is controlling this for no good reason other than they're trying to keep their military secrets secret. And I believe that UFOs are in fact part of the military at this point. And I do believe that any crash that's been retrieved body or piece of technology has been sent to the military before anyone else.
Right, of course. That's where it is. Yeah.
Well, I can tell you that at least according to Randy Kramer, who is, he's still a Marine, and when he addressed a group of us in Yelm, Washington, well, it was actually near Yelm, in a small conference that was a really small conference that gets held up there, which is a lovely, actually, venue and conference, and very, small conferences are actually preferable because you get to know everyone, right? It's a great way to sort of interact with people in the sector who, endlessly fascinating individuals, I have to say. So I was speaking there, so was he. He was talking on stage about what he said would be a fake alien invasion that they were going to stage, the military. He was speaking point blank about this. And I actually sort of raised my hand and asked him a pertinent question that made him come off the stage, stomp over to me, get in my face, and start yelling at me. And it was all on film. Of course, that film never made it out to the public, but the bottom line, and we parted as friends, but the bottom line is that I said, how can you stage a fake alien invasion when we've already got a real one going on? what do you expect the aliens who are actually here now to do while that's going on? You know,
Right.
they're not going to just stand by necessarily. So that's one thing. But the other thing is that what he said, and I've heard this from more than one person, and that is that the military, according to him, this was his story, not mine, that the military is so sick of living a double life. In other words, the people that are in the secret space program, which has steadily grown and has to do with underground bases worldwide,
Right.
and is a huge enterprise. Also goes, had bases on the moon and Mars, where Randy worked, of course, on Moon and Mars as a soldier. And also a pilot. So going interstellar, all of this that Captain Mark Richards talks about, and so if you understand that the technology that they do have, you would know that they can certainly stage whatever they'd like in terms of a fake alien invasion. They may have some glitches and problems along the way. There is a certain level of the right hand never knowing what the left hand is doing in the military.
Right.
But that in part is purposeful, because what you have is a surface military that doesn't know anything about the secret space program or claims not to. And that anyone that you talk to from that sector, they will actually strenuously deny that there is a secret space program at all. And so to me, of course, having so many whistleblowers, and I wrote a book on the subject, this is absurd. So you're in a very strange catch-22 when you get into this whole subject.
Right.
In my opinion, Randy wasn't lying. He was telling exactly the truth. When I told Mark Richards what Randy Kramer had said, he said, sounds like a good idea. The reason is that and Mark Richards is a captain, so he's an officer in the Navy in the secret space program. That is who he is and was. And so bottom line is that when you have this split, which, I think it was Rich Dolan who termed the rogue civilization, in essence, you've got a huge split going on our planet, in which a good portion of the planet is actually acknowledging and even working in a program that allows them access to technology that is beyond 10,000 years in advance of what we deal with on surface Earth. And so you've got this growing schism in society on the planet, and that is causing all kinds of difficulties. And the rifts in the military are only a small part of that. So this is really what we're dealing with. We're dealing with compartmentalization, which of course this is the way they keep secrets. And actually, I have to disagree with you a bit there, Tommy, when you're talking about that they can't keep secrets. Actually, they can. And they've demonstrated over the years, because there's so many even secrets that I know that I talk about, I'm a unique individual with my specific whistleblowers and so on, my special access, if you will, in which I get corroborating testimony. So it's not like I just take one person's word for something, okay?
Right.
So in my own way, I'm able to do a lot of vetting of information, because when you have a lot of information, it's easier to vet information, because you can bounce things off other information you get and see how it all plays out. But the bottom line is that they have kept these secrets from the mainstream. Okay, so this is where their secrecy, their ability to keep secrets, has been demonstrated over and over again. Even look at the COVID thing. I mean, there are so many secrets. Now, of course, we talk in the alternative media. Doctors everywhere are really at this point yelling at the top of their voices to try to change the paradigm, and no one is listening. So again, the schism that goes on allows for secrecy. It allows for the left hand not to know what the right hand's doing. And in essence, what appears to be that the left hand doesn't want to know what the right hand is doing, because they have no interest in learning the truth. They want to live according to a certain paradigm, don't want to think that we are actually visited by aliens from other planets that would change your religion. It'll change everything, the way you look at, life on planet Earth, period. So this is where, so it's a double-edged sword. In a certain sense, they like to look incompetent. Always keep that in mind. So this is something that, a lot of people don't quite get. And it has to do with, I think it's the art of war. This is a book that gets passed around in military circles, also Hollywood, by the way, which is where I was working when I first read it. It has to do with appearing to be less than you are so that the enemy is deceived. So the American government plays this game. Other governments will play this game, talking about, how you get articles and they're saying, oh, American technology is so behind the Chinese and it's just terrible and this and that. A lot of this is lies. And if you want more information about that, just listen to Catherine Austin Fitts, and she will tell you more and more about the black budget. And then you have to say, well, they're pouring a lot of money into something. Okay, sure. So there's something there. Okay, they're not wasting their time and their money spinning around in circles. So I appreciate what you're saying in terms of trying to keep secrets and appearing to be bumbling at it. And I also can say that there are purposeful leaks, but the reality is the secrets are being kept from the mainstream because they're good at that, okay? And they've got control of that. But where they can't keep the secrets as well is people like you and me, where we get access to information, we put it out there, but they also kill us off. They also, try to destroy our credibility. They do things like, to me, I was on YouTube for 16 years, and overnight they deleted my entire channel. Boom, So, it's not as incompetent as you're maybe thinking of it. It's probably a lot more professional than you really realize. And it's in fact, because it's so professional, that it appears that they're bumbling or they've accidentally let this thing out or that thing out. But you can come back at me with whatever you like. So let me give Tommy a chance to reply, okay. And then we'll go with you, Tim.
All right. I agree with most of what you're saying. Absolutely. And as a former government employee myself, I do understand how a lot of I understand where the waste goes. In fact, I remember being shocked and appalled for many years that there was so much governmental waste. And you're right. There's a lot of money that cannot be accounted for, and it is no doubt going into black budget military programs and things of that nature. I mean, it's certainly not going into American infrastructure and things of that nature. Okay. But I also do recognize the incompetence of our government from the top down. And I think that's something that's, especially in the last couple of days, is pretty hard to ignore. I mean, we just gave away essentially $2 trillion. Okay, and a bunch of lives. Here you go. So, I mean, I understand that there are compartmentalized secrets that are out there that are really hard to get at because they're so compartmentalized. And I do believe that there is a government within a government of sorts running behind the scenes of what you see on the surface. I believe that. And I believe that because it's pretty hard to miss at this point. But, again, to go back to, false flags and things of that nature, at this point, I just don't believe in the level of competence in our government to be able to pull off an operation like that. I'm not saying that it couldn't happen. I'm not saying that it won't happen. But in my opinion, that's a bridge a little bit too far for me, knowing what I personally know about the government.
What I know about the government, I kind of agree with Tommy, but then again, what I know about the behind the scenes cabal, when you wrap your head around that and really realize what access they have to those compartmentalized projects and the technologies that are available, I think there is no way to doubt that the possibility exists that they could pull that off. Human beings in general are gullible and they'll believe anything. Come on. If they see a triangular vehicle, and a lot of people are familiar with the TR3B and the TR6 and the different models and all this, that allegedly the US government has in their possession. But then again, they'll see a triangle and they'll go, oh my God, it's an alien ship. So what I'm saying to you is people can be deceived really easy. So I think it's a very plausible possibility that they could pull that off. Now, all they have to do is scare the public into believing something like they did with the vaccine, okay?
That's
And
true.
boom, boom, you have believers. You have diehard believers. That's just the way it is. In regards to censorship and suppression and how you were banned off the channel, off the YouTube, we were recently demonetized and given no reason.
Right.
So it's
That's what they did to me a year before they deleted me, by the way. So be warned.
so I'm thinking that, well, this is the fourth time they've done it to me. So I'm thinking either I'm hitting close to home, or perhaps they just don't like the little guy. I don't know. I personally, in my opinion, the little guy makes up the bulk of YouTube.
It does.
For the grassroots movement into trying to reveal the facts of what's really going on. Because when you wrap your head around all the things that are out there, including the knowledge that you have, Kerry, is sometimes insurmountable for the human mind to even think that way. And I think that's why a lot of people have difficulty. I mean, they get up in the morning, have their coffee, go to work, come home, play with kids, have supper, go to bed, watch a little TV. That's their day. They don't look at what we're looking at. And my biggest goal is not for disclosure, because I personally believe it may have already happened.
Mhm.
What I think is we're looking for confirmation.
Right.
Confirmation, not necessarily from the government, but from people like yourself and other people of your caliber and beyond.
Well, they don't have to convince us because we've already had our own experiences. We already know that these things are real and have for decades. Who they need to actually convince is my neighbor, my friend, my family member. That's who they need to convince.
Exactly.
But to go back on something Tim was saying there, he's right. Half this country would be scared of their own shadow. We found out here in the last couple of years how shockingly bad this was. I thought we were a lot more, frankly, brave of a country.
Say that I have to agree with you there.
I mean, I saw people that were social distancing in their vehicles in line at McDonald's, and I saw it more than once.
I know, laughable.
So he's absolutely right, and those are the personalities. Those are the people out there that are not going to be able to handle this, because most of them can't handle a ham sandwich. All right, but do we deny progress at this point? Do we deny the existence of what we all know to be true because we're simply concerned about scaring some of the masses? You know, they're just going to have to get over it. If they jump off a bridge, sadly, well, then that was their choice. But at this point, the phenomenon is real. They've gone as far as to acknowledge that. Okay, it's time to give us some more tangible information that we know is out there, and that's just the bottom line. Why at this point? Concealing information is just making the government look more inept than it already is, and that's a pretty tall order after the last couple of days.
I can honestly say we elected these people, and it's their job and duty to provide things for the people, and so far they're not doing that. I mean, they're trying to implement their will rather than help the people in general. So in regards to the UFO subject, yeah, we know hardware exists. Yeah, most people are blowing it off now. So whenever I put out a video of a sighting, it's like it's become benign. It's like it's no longer as much of a mystery. Oh yeah, we know that exists. Yeah, but do you question deeper and find out who's occupying these ships, if anyone? Why are they here? What's their agenda? That's the whole thing that I'm digging into.
If I could make one more point, just to go back real quick on the demonetization thing, folks, just to let everyone know, you won't see anything on our channel that you wouldn't let your 5-year-old child watch. Okay,
right, exactly.
There's no foul language. We're absolutely professional. We're not even tabloid. We don't play the tabloid game, and we debunk videos all the time. If we know that they're bunk, believe me, you'll know that too.
Yeah.
So it's just very unfortunate. It looks like information suppression, plain and simple. I don't know what else it could possibly be, and it's
Well, I
unfortunate.
mean, in a certain sense, it's a left-handed compliment, as they say. It means you are on the right track, or they wouldn't mess with you at all. I mean, that's just, the current climate we live in, and it's rampantly known now that everyone is being suppressed, and the censorship is just rampant. So this is the name of the game right now in our society. And big tech, of course, is front and center at that game. So I don't think anyone would be surprised at that. I think that it is some kind of testimony to the fact that you've got some interesting stuff going on in your channel. So maybe that's added reason for my audience to check it out. So I've got to go. We've been going for a while. So let's reconvene at some time in the future. I really enjoyed our conversation. And so there's more things to be talked about. And why don't you give out your contact information and your location and when your show is and all that sort of thing.
Okay, Tommy, go ahead.
Okay, best place to find this is going to be on YouTube, at least at this point. That's going to be the UFO Man channel. Just go out there and search for UFO Man. You'll find us. You can also find us out on our website. That's going to be www.ufomannetwork.com. We have all kinds of exclusive information on there. You can find out a little bit more about Tim and myself and more detail about our focus, what we're about, things of that nature. We also have a Patreon page over there, things of that nature. But the biggest thing is come out to the channel every Saturday night. It's 9 p.m. Eastern time. And watch the show. I'll tell you, we have great guests. We have fantastic UFO video review. In fact, we get compliments on that every single week. I think a lot of people just come for that and not necessarily us sometimes, but that's okay. But anyway, we have a great show, great channel. Come over there and check us out, folks. I promise you'll like it. Again, that's every Saturday night live, 9 p.m. Eastern time.
And do you have any direct email address or a contact form on your website?
The website
Yes.
would probably be the best place to contact us. We have a report a sighting page out there, and we have a contact form. That'd be fantastic. Also, Kerry, wanted to thank you for having us. Wonderful to see you again. You're such a cool person. I had a really good time here today, and thank you again so much for this.
Yeah, I want to say the same thing. Thank you very much, Kerry. We really appreciate your time and your effort in this matter. And we'll take a look at your book, and we'll take a look at your investigative article you just wrote, and we'll get back to you on that. And thank you very much.
All right. Great to see you guys, and great discussion. So take care, and thanks everyone for watching. Please go to projectcamelotportal.com, projectcamelot.tv, or projectcamelot.org. Those are 3 URLs. They all go to the same place. We also have my entire library that was deleted from YouTube has gone over to odyssey.com. So if you're looking for me, and I've been told lots of people still are, just Google me or go to my website, and you'll get the link to the Odyssey channel that we have very, very clear and front and center on our website, linked over to Odyssey. We also post the videos embedded into all of the articles. So there's lots of ways of getting to my material. And today especially, I did write a very important article, highly recommend it. It's called On the Eve of Destruction. And it's all about what's really going on with Trump and team and the future. Okay. So thanks again for watching, and I'll be back, and have a great night. Take care. Bye-bye.
So we want to thank everybody for coming this evening and enjoying the Kerry Cassidy video. We really enjoyed being part of her interview, and she invited us back. So we're going to do another interview with her, and possibly just on our channel, so we can do it live, and then you could ask her questions and get live time answers. But we appreciate everybody in the chat and everybody who watched online. Tommy?
Yes, everybody, thanks for coming out. Again, just to back Tim up there, we really had a great time with Kerry. She's a wonderful person, very cool. Every time we get with her, we just have a wonderful time with her. And we understand that a lot of her folks are over on the channel tonight. We want to thank everybody, all you new people for coming. Really appreciate that. Please don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you haven't done so. Of course, our regular audience, you guys are the best there is. You know that. You know how much we love you. We thank you guys for coming out. This was just a really, really neat experience. And it gave Tim and I, to be honest, a little bit of a breather. And we really appreciate everybody for coming. And, we'll see y'all next week.
Yeah, next week we have Whitley Strieber on the 28th. So don't forget, mark it on your calendars, and we'll see you there. And as always, we want to thank you for watching.